Okay, let's unpack this. We've all been in conversations that are, messy or formal or confusing.
Or just plain annoying.
Right. But when we try to describe those interactions, we often fall back on the basics. They were arguing.
They just chatted.
Exactly. And those are, they're broad brushstrokes. They get the job done, but they completely fail to capture the intent.
Or the style.
Or the nuance of how the message was actually delivered.
And that is precisely the gap we're bridging today.
Okay.
Our mission, taking a deep dive into these advanced C2 level vocabulary sources, is pretty simple.
Right.
We want to equip you, the listener, with the verbal precision you need to articulate how people speak, not just what they're saying.
And this isn't just about sounding smarter.
No, not at all. It's about dramatically elevating your ability to analyze and understand what's really going on in social, professional, and, political interactions.
We're moving past the basic vocabulary of talk to find that single perfect word. The word that describes the style and the intent of a communication event. Think about the huge difference between someone just using excessive, meaningless words to purposefully stall a business decision.
Right.
Versus a diplomat sitting down to strike a tense, maybe even a life and death agreement.
In English, with its just vast lexicon, has words for every single point on that spectrum.
It really does.
C2 level vocabulary gives you the analytical tools to describe those nuances. How people converse, argue, exaggerate, or express opinions with surgical precision.
And if you can define the type of communication accurately,
you instantly start to understand the motives behind it.
Absolutely. And the source material we're looking at beautifully sets up these powerful contrasts.
It does.
We're going to look at the differences between a light, casual chat, which we might call to confabulate,
right,
versus delaying a discussion with a lot of verbose stalling, which is to palaver. And then the high-stakes strategic negotiation, which we define as to parley.
That is a huge intellectual spectrum.
It is, and we are going to explore every segment of it. So let's start at the low-stakes end of that spectrum, which we're calling the chatterers.
The chatterers. I like that.
This group covers several similar verbs that describe low stakes, often, unnecessary conversation.
Right.
But my immediate challenge here, and I think it's the listener's challenge too, is finding the precise boundary between these terms.
Okay.
Where does a casual, beneficial chat turn into an annoying ramble?
That is the core of mastering this section, isn't it?
Okay.
We need to distinguish the intent and the effect.
Okay, so how do we do that?
Well, we can group these terms into three rough categories. First, you have the light and superficial, which is like social lubrication. Then you have tedious and annoying, which is all about duration and listener fatigue.
Right, when you just want them to stop.
Exactly. And finally, incoherent or foolish, which is where the conversation fails because of a lack of substance.
Okay, that's a really helpful framework. So let's start with the most socially benign terms, the lubrication. To confabulate and matter.
Right. To confabulate is defined as having a casual and light conversation without sharing a lot of deep or, sensitive information. It is, as you said, it's the essential social ritual.
The synonyms are helpful here, aren't they? Chat idly, converse lightly.
They are, because they show that the depth is irrelevant. The social connection is the goal.
Okay, so give us an example where this word is really indispensable.
Think about a professional context. Executives don't have these deep, meaningful conversations when they run into each other at a corporate event.
No, of course not.
They confabulate, they talk about the weather, their weekend plans, sports scores.
Right.
It's a mechanism for acknowledging someone's presence and maintaining professional relationships without spending a lot of intellectual or emotional energy.
So it implies social ease, it's surface level, it's safe.
Exactly. You are communicating, but nothing is on the line.
That makes perfect sense. It's a necessary, non-committal way to occupy social space. No, to natter seems to sit right next to it.
It does, but there's a slight shift in tone. To natter is also casual conversation, but the sources we looked at specifically note its frequent connection to gossip or trivial matters.
Ah, okay.
So when people natter about neighborhood news at the market, or colleagues natter by the water cooler, there is a slight leaning toward exchanging trivial, maybe sometimes judgmental information.
So it's unlike the pure, content-free, social ease of confabulate.
Slice.
So if I say they spent an hour confabulating, I mean, they were just making noise together happily. But if I say they spent an hour nattering, I'm implying they were trading small, maybe slightly negative observations about other people.
You've got it. Confabulate is content neutral. Natter leans toward triviality and, potentially low-grade gossip.
It's the difference between how was your flight,
which is confabulation,
and did you hear what happened to Sarah's promotion?
which is definitely nattering.
Okay, now we cross the line into the tedious and annoying. This is where the length and the lack of purpose really start to irritate the listener. We have to jaw and to yak. Now, I find these are often used interchangeably. Can we solidify the distinction?
Absolutely, because that distinction is key for a C2 learner.
Okay.
They're both synonyms that emphasize excessive talk that becomes annoying. But to jaw means talking at length in a tedious or annoying way.
So the emphasis for jaw is on the duration.
The drawn-out duration and the boring content. Yes. Think of neighbors jawing over the fence for hours about their lawn care. The content is dull and the time commitment is irritating. Or politicians who jaw endlessly about reforms without ever proposing a meaningful, actionable strategy.
So it's the irritating length tied to the vacuous subject matter.
Exactly.
So jaw implies the content is uninteresting and it's just dragging on and on. What about to yak?
Okay, so yak means talking persistently, often tediously or annoyingly.
Persistently.
The distinction is subtle, but it's important. Yak emphasizes the act of continuous talking. It's noise pollution, even if the content isn't necessarily boring. If someone yacked constantly on their phone during a movie, or a taxi driver yacked relentlessly about traffic all the way.
Right. The persistence and the noise itself are the annoyance factor.
You've got it. Jaw is about the boring length. Yak is about the irritating persistence. They're both excellent replacements for that common phrase, he just went on and on.
That distinction really helps. Jaw is boring the listener to death. Yak is driving the listener crazy with constant sound.
Right.
Now, the only one in this duration-focused section that seems positive is to gab.
That's right. And its inclusion is important for contrast. Gab is defined as chatting casually for an extended period, but it's often described as lively or enthusiastic.
Okay, so the duration is still there, but the feeling is different.
Totally different. You gab excitedly about major life events, or you gab for hours after a long separation.
So the focus is on duration, but the connotation suggests genuine enjoyment.
Enthusiasm and energy, yes. Right. Unlike the deep irritation implied by jaw or yak. And another thing, gab is often bidirectional.
Ah, a real conversation.
Whereas jaw and yak often just describe a monologue.
That's fantastic. Okay. We've covered the light chatters and the long, annoying talkers. Now let's move to the group whose talk fails because of its substance.
Or lack thereof.
Or lack thereof. The incoherent or foolish talk. This is where we analyze a failure of critical thinking or focus. We have prate, prattle, palaver, babble, and blab.
This is a critical group. It describes talk that fails not just because it's too long, but because its content is inherently flawed.
How so?
Either by being foolish or by just serving as a distraction. Take to prate. This means talking at length in a foolish or inconsequential way, often with a sense of self-importance.
So how does that differ from the earlier concepts of jaw or yak? They sound similar.
Prate introduces the element of misguided arrogance.
Oh, okay.
The classic example is a pundit who prates about complex international politics without genuinely understanding the issues.
Right.
It's high volume, high time commitment, but zero insight or intellectual foundation. It implies the speaker thinks they are saying something important, but they are clearly mistaken.
Which gives the listener the perfect, concise internal command. Stop prating and get to the actual point.
Exactly. It's an indictment of the speaker's intelligence or, their research.
Okay. Now, similarly, we have to prattle. It means talking a lot about unimportant things in a way that may seem foolish.
Right. And prattle often implies an inherent lack of adult awareness, or maybe an excessive innocence.
Ah, so prattle is often used for children.
Yes. A child prattling about imaginary adventures fits perfectly because of their lack of adult context.
Sure.
But you could also use it for an adult who is maybe nervous and scatterbrained. A guest at a dinner party who's prattling on about trivial details while ignoring an important conversation happening nearby.
So prate suggests high volume, low content from a misplaced sense of authority.
And prattle implies low volume, low content from a lack of focus or innocence.
What about to palaver? That sounds a little grander, maybe older, but the definition is talking aimlessly and at length. How is this different from the annoyance of prate?
The true insight of palaver is realizing it is often a tool of passive aggression or time theft.
Oh, interesting.
It's not merely poor communication. While its synonyms include waffle and prattle, the examples show that palaver often implies a deliberate hindrance to progress.
Can you give an example?
The committee meeting dissolved into endless palaver about minor technical details instead of voting.
So if I'm in a meeting and someone is deliberately using excessive tangential language to stall a decision they don't like, that's palaver.
That's it.
It's talking foolishly when you should be acting or deciding. It's bureaucratic quicksand.
That's the application that makes it a C2 word. It describes a tactical stalling maneuver.
Wow.
Now let's look at total communication breakdown with to babble. This is all about incoherence.
Right. We usually think of babies.
Yes, and that's the positive context. The baby babbling happily in her crib. But the critical context is stress.
Okay.
It means making random, meaningless sounds or talking incoherently. If a person is under intense pressure and starts babbling excuses instead of providing a clear explanation.
It signals a complete breakdown.
A complete breakdown in meaningful cognitive communication. The listener knows the speaker has just lost control of their thoughts.
And finally, rounding up this messy section, we have to blab. This seems to imply a consequence.
Absolutely. Blab is specifically about talking excessively or thoughtlessly, often with the consequence of revealing sensitive or secret information.
So the core issue isn't duration or foolishness, it's the indiscretion.
The thoughtless indiscretion. The source uses great examples. Don't blab the surprise party plan.
Right.
Or a witness who blabbed irrelevant details in court, damaging their own case. The thoughtlessness of the speaker causes a direct, tangible problem for others.
We've spent a lot of time in the realm of social noise, the unnecessary, the foolish, the irritating.
We have.
Now we execute a sharp pivot. Here's where it gets really interesting because we shift to communication where words have specific weight.
And consequence.
And a highly defined structure.
Okay.
The speaker here is intentional and strategic.
Precisely. We are focusing on communication that requires strategy, formality, and authority. The stakes are dramatically higher than just mere social upkeep.
Starting with what is arguably the highest stakes term in this whole deep dive, to parlay.
Parlay is a superb, classic verb. It suggests negotiation with an opposing side.
An enemy.
Often an enemy, or at least a deeply conflicted party. It's a structured discussion of terms for an agreement where the outcome matters, greatly.
I instantly think of historical movies, pirates or generals meeting under a flag of truce.
That's the root of it, exactly. Diplomats parlayed for hours to avert a crisis. Striking workers parlayed with management to resolve a massive industrial dispute. The emphasis is on the stakes and the existence of an opposing side.
You don't parlay with your colleague about the budget for lunch.
No. You parlay when there is a fundamental conflict of interest. A high-level formal negotiation structure is required to prevent a worse outcome, like war or a permanent business breakdown.
Right, okay. Isn't defining parlay as just formal negotiation potentially understating it?
How so?
Doesn't parlay always carry that historical connotation of conflict? Whereas a modern negotiation might just be about synergy. Is parlay too melodramatic for a simple business deal?
That's a great point, and it gets to the C2 nuance of usage.
Right.
In modern business, you would rarely use parlay unless the stakes felt existential. A hostile takeover negotiation, perhaps?
Or a union management crisis.
Exactly, where the business's survival is on the line. For synergy or simple M&A discussions, negotiate is standard.
So parlay intentionally elevates the emotional and adversarial tension of the exchange.
It does. If you use parlay, you are highlighting the inherent deep conflict between the two parties.
Got it. Conflict plus elevated formality. Okay, let's move to public speech with to orate.
To orate means to speak formally and at length, especially publicly. This is not merely giving a speech.
It's more than that.
It is. It implies a mastery of delivery, structure, and rhetorical device. The senator orated passionately on the floor, using carefully chosen language and timing.
Historical figures like Cicero.
They didn't just talk. They orated masterfully. Oration suggests eloquence, deliberate composition, and a deep understanding of how to move an audience.
So it's set far apart from the random ramblings of, say, prate or palaver.
Worlds apart.
So if someone is just reading a statement badly off a teleprompter, you wouldn't say they are orating.
No, you would say they were delivering a speech. Orate is reserved for the speaker who owns the stage and the material.
Someone who is truly trying to sway public opinion through rhetorical excellence.
It signifies skill.
And finally, in this structured communication cluster, we have a verb that isn't about dialogue or presentation, but about setting boundaries.
Yeah.
To stipulate.
To stipulate is defined as specifying requirements, especially in an agreement. This is a very powerful verb.
Why is that?
Because it establishes clear, non-negotiable terms that assert control over the future relationship or interaction.
And we see this most often in legal or professional contexts, right?
Absolutely. A detailed contract stipulates payment terms clearly. Rules stipulate that no late submissions will be accepted. You stipulate terms to prevent ambiguity and assert non-negotiable boundaries, which is why it often carries a legal or, final connotation.
So it's the ultimate move from talking about potential terms to establishing the definitive binding terms themselves.
It shuts down discussion on those specific points.
The insight there is that stipulation is proactive. It prevents palaver later on.
Because the terms are already established and documented.
Exactly. Let's transition now to how we share our thoughts, our beliefs, and our intellectual foundations.
Okay.
It's fascinating how many different words English has just for sharing a thought, depending on the weight, the relevance, and the intellectual foundation we attach to it.
Indeed. We are categorizing the weight and intent behind expressing beliefs. We move from a casual comment to deeply foundational reasoning.
And the vocabulary shifts significantly to reflect that intellectual heft.
It has to.
So let's start with the basic expression of belief. To opine.
Opine is the starting point. To express one's opinion. Experts opine on the economic forecast in journals.
Bloggers opine freely on social issues online.
Exactly. It implies sharing a view that is assumed to be informed, especially if the speaker is positioned as an expert, but it doesn't necessarily require a deep evidentiary defense.
You're just putting the thought forward for consideration.
Right.
And it's close relative to proffer. I realized I used proffer incorrectly last week. I thought it meant to casually just throw out an idea. You're saying it always suggests offering something deemed relevant and valuable.
That's a crucial correction. Proffer means to offer an explanation, advice, or opinion.
Okay.
And what's fascinating here is that proffer suggests offering something of value or relevance. It implies a deliberate attempt to contribute something helpful or substantive.
So an example would be?
A mentor proffered valuable career advice during a consultation. Witnesses proffer conflicting accounts, but they are offered as valuable evidence.
So it implies presenting a relevant contribution to the discussion. Maybe hesitantly, but with the belief that it is an answer or a solution.
That's it.
So opine is expressing a view, while proffer is offering a solution or a resource. That makes proffer feel much more active and useful.
Exactly. One is a state of belief, the other is a helpful action. Now we get to the highest intellectual level. To postulate.
This one sounds like it belongs in a science lab.
It does. Postulate means to suggest or assume something as a basis for reasoning.
Right. The synonyms posit, hypothesize, presume, they tell the whole story.
They do. This is a high-level cognitive verb related to intellectual foundation. Scientists postulate theories to explain complex phenomena before they gather evidence.
And philosophers postulate the existence of ideal societies based on certain initial axioms.
Right. If you're postulating something, you're creating the foundational assumption upon which a larger structure of ideas will be built.
It is speech that forms the starting point for exploration. You can't postulate what you want for dinner.
No, you postulate the starting truth for a massive intellectual undertaking. So you opine casually, you proffer something helpful, and you postulate something foundational.
But the manner in which any of these are delivered can change everything, which brings us to the adjective vociferous.
Vociferous describes the intensity of the delivery, not the content. It means expressing opinions loudly and forcefully.
Okay, so why is it more powerful than just saying loud?
Because it often implies a kind of moral righteousness or intense passion applied to the volume.
So the speaker is trying to physically push their idea onto the audience.
Precisely. The crowd was vociferous in their demands for justice. Protesters became vociferous during the legislative debate, forcing a recess. The term captures a clamorous, outspoken delivery, regardless of whether the speaker is opining or postulating.
It's all about that sheer intensity and volume applied to the speech.
And it suggests the speaker believes the sheer force of their sound equates to the force of their conviction.
It paints a much more vivid picture than just shouting. It implies a cause or a belief driving the noise. Nobody likes a show-off.
Yeah.
But English gives us incredibly precise ways to describe different kinds of boasting. This is where precision in vocabulary helps us identify whether we are dealing with ego, insecurity, or, just a bit of triumphant gloating after a win.
This cluster of verbs is all about self-aggrandizement, but they differ based on the loudness, the specific intent to impress, or the context of a victory.
Okay, let's start with the loudest, most aggressive forms. To gasconade and to rhodomontade.
Right.
They are massive words, and they seem like identical twins describing loud exaggeration. How do we pull them apart?
We pull them apart by focusing on the speaker's internal motive versus the audience's reaction.
Okay.
To gasconade means to brag loudly and exaggerate, specifically to impress or intimidate.
Right.
But the C2 insight here is that the source notes a critical psychological element. He gasconades constantly to mask deep-seated insecurities.
So it's often offensive. Performative bluster used as a shield.
It is. The speaker is trying to make themselves feel better or prevent others from challenging them.
Okay, so gasconade is an internal defense mechanism expressed externally. What about rhodomontade?
Rhodomontade is similarly defined as bragging and exaggerating loudly, but it often focuses on its detrimental effect on others.
How so?
The knight rhodomontaded about his battlefield triumphs for hours, and his endless rhodomontade alienated every potential ally at the court.
So while both are loud, rhodomontade focuses more on the dominance factor.
Exactly. You rhodomontade to dominate conversations and bully listeners, often to the detriment of your social standing. The primary result is often alienation.
So gasconade is bragging out of fear. Rhodomontade is bragging out of overconfidence that pushes people away.
That's a fantastic differentiation. They share the theme of excessive, self-aggrandizing noise, but their root cause is different.
Okay. Moving from general bluster to celebrating a specific achievement, we have to crow.
Crowing is very specific and strongly associated with gloating over specific success. It usually suggests immediate, sometimes petty triumph.
So after winning the contract, the team crowed about their victory in the office.
Perfect example. Or the rival CEO crowed over his competitor's failure. It often carries that cautionary element too.
Don't crow too soon.
The negotiation isn't finalized. It's a very specific, triumphal celebration of a win.
Got it. Now, for the mechanics of overstatement itself, we have to hyperbolize versus to play up.
To hyperbolize is pure descriptive overstatement used for emphasis or effect. It's a technique.
Okay.
Storytellers often hyperbolize events for dramatic effect. Advertisers hyperbolize product benefits to make them seem superior.
So unlike gasconade or rhodomontade, which are about the speaker's ego.
Hyperbolize is a neutral descriptive technique. The speaker is intentionally stretching the truth for maximum impact.
And its close cousin, to play up. I feel like play up is a more strategic, selective act.
It is. To play up is a strategic, intentional action defined as emphasizing or highlighting something to make it seem more important or relevant than it might otherwise be.
Okay, like in an interview.
Exactly. She played up her minor volunteer experience as a leadership role in the interview.
Right.
Directors play up emotional scenes by adding dramatic music for maximum impact. The media plays up a minor scandal by giving it wall-to-wall coverage.
So it's selective exaggeration. You intentionally spotlight certain facts while downplaying others to achieve a calculated strategic goal.
That's it.
So hyperbolize is stretching the truth of all facts. Play up is focusing the spotlight only on the facts that serve your agenda. Not all communication is about agreement or sharing knowledge.
No, definitely not.
Some is designed to wound, criticize, or playfully engage. We're now examining the darker and lighter sides of interpersonal communication.
The language of conflict and social maneuvering. This section reveals the language of deliberate interpersonal engagement, ranging from direct insult and disdainful mocking to the essential counterpoint of good-natured teasing.
Okay, let's start with direct disrespect. To affront.
To affront means to say or do something purposely hurtful or disrespectful.
So the focus is on the deliberate nature of the disrespect.
It is, and the resulting injury to the recipient's dignity. His crude joke affronted the entire religious group. She felt deeply affronted by the dismissive tone the manager took when discussing her work.
So it describes a deep, intentional slight that wounds the recipient's sense of propriety or honor.
Right.
Then we have to scoff, which feels less direct than an affront. It sounds like it's aimed more at an idea than a person.
That's right. Scoff is about mockery mixed with contempt. It means to mock contemptuously, often verbally.
So an example would be,
critics scoffed at the innovative design initially, saying it would never work. They scoffed openly at her ambitious goals, treating them as naive or unworthy of serious consideration.
So it's a verbal expression of disdain.
Treating the subject or idea as utterly trivial. An affront aims to wound a person. Scoff aims to dismiss an idea.
And of course, the most direct verbal outlet for immediate frustration, to cuss.
Cuss is simply to use impolite or profane language. He cussed loudly after stubbing his toe.
Right, an immediate, emotionally driven response.
Using profanity as a pressure valve. A film character might cuss repeatedly to show frustration or lack of education. It's an unvarnished, often spontaneous burst of negative emotion delivered through language.
Moving away from direct confrontation, we have the indirect conflict of to tattle.
To tattle means to reveal someone's wrongdoing or misbehavior to others, usually an authority figure.
But the C2 layer here is the social dynamics, isn't it?
It is. Children often tattle on siblings to gain a parental advantage.
Sure.
But in a workplace, employees who tattle risk being ostracized by their peers, even if they are technically right.
Right. It's an attempt to resolve conflict or gain advantage by informing an authority figure.
But it almost always comes with a social cost among peers. It highlights the division between hierarchical and peer relationships.
Okay, our only truly positive term in this section is to banter. We need a word to counteract all this negativity.
Banter is the crucial counterpoint. It means to engage in light, playful, teasing conversation.
So it's vital because it uses teasing not to offend or slight.
But to build rapport and ease tension. Comedians banter effortlessly to warm up the crowd.
And colleagues banter about sports or harmless mistakes to ease workplace tension.
It's quick, witty exchange designed to establish good humor and intimacy. If affront is designed to cause disrespect.
Banter is designed to generate respect through shared humor.
Exactly.
That distinction is key. The intent separates banter from scoff. Banter requires reciprocity.
And scoffing requires contempt.
Finally, let's look at communication that is either struggling to get out or is intentionally designed to hide its true meaning from the wider audience. This is the language of uncertainty, struggle, and sophisticated manipulation.
This focuses on indirect or difficult forms of speech, where the listener has to work harder to discern the message.
Either because the speaker is struggling with their own emotion,
Or because the speaker intends to use ambiguity to their advantage.
starting with the struggle, to falter.
Falter, in the context of communication, means to utter something hesitantly or with uncertainty. It describes a physical manifestation of stress or internal conflict in speech.
So her voice faltered as she confessed the truth.
Right, revealing her anxiety. Or he faltered mid-sentence, forgetting his prepared remarks under pressure.
It signals a lack of confidence, internal conflict.
Or a temporary cognitive collapse, yes.
Next, we revisit a verb that we must contrast sharply with orate, to spout.
Right. Spout is defined as speaking or expressing opinions lengthily, fervently, or pompously.
And we established that orate implies mastery, structure, and eloquence.
Right. But spout, however, suggests that the content is shallow or baseless, even if it's delivered with passion.
So he spouts conspiracy theories at every gathering.
Repeating them with fiery conviction? Yes. Critics accuse the pundit of spouting nonsense every week on air. The fervor and length are there, but the content is generally viewed as lacking substance.
So orate is effective, structured eloquence. Spout is ineffective, zealous babbling. Both are long, but only one is respected.
Exactly. Spout is often used by a frustrated listener to dismiss the speaker entirely.
Okay, now for the truly manipulative terms. To insinuate.
Insinuate is crucial for critical analysis because it means to suggest something indirectly and almost always negatively.
It is the language of plausible deniability.
It is. He insinuated that she was irresponsible by commenting loudly on her sudden wealth. The article insinuated corruption among the board members without providing any direct proof.
Why is this tactic so effective, and why is the word insinuate so important to know?
Because the speaker avoids a direct accusation, they can retreat if challenged.
They can just say, I never said that directly.
Exactly. But the negative suggestion, the rumor, the doubt, already lingers in the air and does its damage.
So mastering insinuate helps you identify subtle attack.
And refuse to engage with the implied meaning until the accuser states it directly.
And finally, perhaps the most tactical and sophisticated term in this entire deep dive, the dog whistle.
The dog whistle is a noun that describes a coded message understood by a specific group, but deliberately ambiguous or innocuous to others.
This highlights the highest level of tactical use of ambiguity in public speech.
Especially political communication.
This term needs a real deep dive. It's more than just a coded phrase, isn't it?
Oh, it's a mechanism for simultaneously engaging two distinct audiences. The message targets niches. Advertisers use phrases that sound like common parlance, but specifically resonate with certain demographics.
Sure.
But politically, its significance is profound. A politician can use a dog whistle phrase that, to the general public, sounds like a benign comment about tradition or hard work.
But to their extremist supporters, it means something entirely different and highly inflammatory.
Right.
The genius of the dog whistle is its utility in polarizing audiences subtly. It allows a speaker to communicate a controversial or even prejudiced message to their base without triggering broad criticism.
Because the literal surface meaning is innocent and defensible. It creates an in-group feeling with the target audience and protects the speaker with plausible deniability.
So when you recognize a dog whistle, you recognize that the communication is fundamentally dishonest.
It's designed to operate on two levels of interpretation simultaneously. It is the sophisticated use of language to conceal and manipulate.
That is a phenomenal summary. It moves the word from jargon to a critical analytical tool. Wow. We just took a rapid but incredibly detailed deep dive into 32 distinct ways to describe the human voice. Moving miles beyond simple descriptions like talked or said, we went from the light social lubrication of confabulating
all the way to the tactical political ambiguity of the dog whistle.
And that was the core mission. Precision in vocabulary equals precision in analyzing the world around you.
And by mastering these terms, you are no longer just recognizing that someone spoke loudly.
Right.
You are articulating that they were vociferous in their demands, showing intense conviction. You are no longer saying someone exaggerated.
You are noting that they intentionally hyperbolized for dramatic effect, or perhaps gasconaded to mask insecurity.
Exactly.
The real applied value here is in recognizing intent. If you are stuck in a meeting where someone is engaging in palaver, you know they are deliberately delaying progress.
If they proffer advice, they are attempting to contribute value.
And if you hear someone prating on television, you know their words are pompous and utterly lacking in intellectual foundation.
And when you acquire this level of precision, you can articulate these subtle differences in communication styles, from casual chatter to formal oration, and even recognize and defend yourself against manipulative speech.
Like insinuating or deploying a dog whistle?
It allows you to analyze communication critically, rather than just absorbing it passively, which is the definition of a well-informed learner.
So let's leave you with this final provocative thought to chew on. If mastering C2 vocabulary allows us to precisely identify when someone is using a dog whistle to mobilize supporters subtly, or when they are merely confabulating about trivial matters, how much responsibility do we have to call out that specific negative behavior? And if we do recognize it, when is silence or perhaps a strategic refusal to engage in the palaver actually the more strategic form of communication?